Alrighty then, good afternoon all you fantastic people, Silver Dragon here, coming at you with some Castle Story news, as it were. In their most recent bit of patch notes, they did mention, and slash news, they did mention that they have acknowledged the problems of quality of life and of the game, from the various feedback of Let's Players, bug reports, and all that kind of thing. So their main focus, and apparently they are still going to focus on it, is to improve on the quality of life for the game. So that's something I did mention a lot last time. So again, if they do eventually manage to greatly improve the quality of life for the game, and some basic features that would make it a lot more fun and less of a frustrating grind, as it were, then it's entirely possible that I will go back to do more Castle Story. But it really depends on how much quality of life stuff they add. Not to say that I'll jump on immediately the moment they launch some quality of life content. I would want to see a good significant portion of it to be added before I would jump back in at this point, considering I've jumped back and forth on this game too many damn times, waiting for something like that to happen. So yeah, I try not to fault them too much. It's just a lot of the issues came from a change of how they just wanted to design the game halfway through. Anytime something like that happens, where you make a significant change to the balance of the game or how it's going to run, there's always going to be a big issue when it comes to the complete state of the game at that point. Namely, when they decided to basically increase the health and damage of pretty much everything universally, so that the enemies would last a little bit longer. They didn't take into account the enemy speed. So although our damage was equivalent to or our damage increase, I should say, was equivalent to their new health increase, in the end, what used to be a system of a good third of the enemy forces would be dead before they even made it to the walls, turned into a system where you'd be lucky to have, 3 or 4 of them wounded by the time they get to the walls. This gets even worse when they upgrade themselves, which is the newest system, which I did like the idea of, where they would upgrade themselves rather than just increasing in number as the waves progress. But the same problem persists. Suddenly they have more health, more damage, they're faster, and yet our damage doesn't necessarily increase to equalize that. It's not like we have a +1 bow or something now that took a ridiculous amount of resources, or maybe a rare resource drop or something like that. There's nothing other than increasing our numbers that can make up for that. And maybe building some more of the, the attack wards. But that's not going to increase the damage significantly enough to make up for the amount of a boost that they get. At least from what I've been, personally seeing. So there's definitely some issues in that regard. So yeah, with the way that they now treat slowing walls, and that if there's any wall and an incline to them, they tend to just attack it. That definitely limits things a little bit. Not to say I couldn't design something that would, take that into account and make things easier. I'm thinking maybe I could do a square-based stair system, similar to how I used to do my little towers, and then just throw a bunch of pylons on that, and that would work quite well. To pretty much slaughter anything that would go into the attack zone, but still, there are limits to that, and so on and so forth. So, not to mention a reverse call to arms was something that we really hoped for. A dozen different things, really. The ability to, select something I personally hope for. The ability to designate positions for our troops to take once they've been called to armed. That way we wouldn't have to micromanage them like crazy. Because when we have to micromanage them that badly, it takes a lot of time. Depending on how many units you have to line them all up, get them in position. They won't, if you just drag and drop them, as it were, like, what the hell, box select them, then place them in the area. You then have to kind of select the ones that are not lined up properly and then realign them properly. It just takes a lot of time, which, considering, that means you have to stop what you're doing, you're building or whatever sooner, and waste additional time to have to manage them like that, which Again, considering the limited amount of time we're given in invasion mode, the main mode I play, the only mode I generally play, I will throw out there. It just makes it really difficult to continue building in the later stages, and rebuilding in the case of if you happen to lose a structure. It would make it incredibly difficult to do so. Same thing for the waves themselves, because the enemy sometimes gets lost. We're wasting more and more precious time towards the next wave, waiting for them to finally get to the damn base. So there would definitely be a nice little leeway in between the waves there. I would say each wave should have a set amount of time that they can last, and then once that's over with, the clock should continue for the next wave. That could potentially be abused a little bit, but, hopefully not as much so that it would make that much of a difference. But there definitely should be some limitations that, likewise, if an enemy wave is still alive beyond a certain time, maybe even towards when the next wave launches, all units in that previous wave should be just despawned / killed. That way we're not having the issue where they're getting stuck in terrain or trying to, dig up into the mountain across the map, which I've seen multiple times. That would definitely alleviate some issues there. So that would be a nice thing to see, but yeah. Other than that, there's a variety of other simple things that, of course, would be nice to see. But I'll leave that for what I've already mentioned before. Not too much to cover other than that. So yeah, I'm not completely eliminating the possibility of continuing. But there would have to be a significant amount of quality of life improvements before I would jump back in at this point. Regardless, though, guys, thank you very much for watching. Again, I do appreciate those who did watch and enjoy my Castle Story content, and I apologize again that I decided pretty much just to outright stop doing anything on it. Mostly until they, get something like that built, or some kind of the major quality of life improvements made. If they do, perhaps I will bring everything back. Perhaps I'll change my rating on the, which I did actually end up changing my, recommendation on the Steam page to not recommended, just because of how little quality of life stuff was done at the end. It didn't feel like a finished product to me. It felt like something that was still in its later beta phase or something, or mid beta phase, where they still had a lot of bug fixing and things to improve, balancing to improve, and so on and so forth. So in the end, even though the price is cheap and the game is generally still worth it, considering the amount of issues that were brought up with 1.0, that just really drained the fun out of it a lot. I mean, I had issues on normal difficulty. That, like, any of the other LPs I did during the entire Invasion series, or all the different Invasion series I did, even the Lights Out one, I was able to get up to, like, wave 50 in normal, no problem. But for this, I mean, we could barely last. And although, I could somewhat alter my units... Oh yeah, actually, speak of which, that would also be a nice thing. The ability to command units while paused, and maybe build things while paused. I imagine during Invasion, it's part of the deal. You don't want to be spending too much time in that regard. Because then you could just pause the game, and be able to build a crap ton of stuff, and then unpause it, and so on and so forth. So that'd be a little cheap in that regard for Invasion. But it would be nice if we could even slow down time or something, temporarily. Just so that we could order our units away. Some way that we could, properly control them. Even if we told them, hey, if you get this damaged, don't stand there and, keep taking damage. Run away. Run to the nearest healing ward or something. If there was some way to do that, that would be nice. Obviously, that'd be a bit more complicated. There'd be AI scripts and a variety of things to do. But still, there's a lot of things that they could do in that regard that would help, at least relatively help us, keep our Bricktrons alive. So that we're not getting screwed over. Because when you lose one, it really hurts. It really hurts. They will revive themselves eventually, but it takes a big hit to our spawn pool. And then, that delays additional units, and their waves aren't getting any weaker. So if you start losing 1 or 2 units, it really significantly impacts your ability to survive the following waves. Which is a real pain in the ass, because, I mean, it's really easy to be able to lose them. Anyway, I digress. That's about, oh yeah. And there's also the issues I have with the Alchemist. I mean, The Alchemist is basically a PvP class. It's made specifically to attack player walls, as we saw with my own issues that I had with him, which is a damn shame. At that point, you might as well not even use the unit for any mode outside of PvP. If there was different type of ammunition that we could have defaulted into invasion mode, say just a shard grenade, that would make them viable for invasion as a nice splash damage character. I mean, it would be really nice to have them as a splash damage character in invasion. Considering the cost for their ammunition as well, they should do a decent amount of damage. I mean, it's not like we can use them infinitely, just because the amount of cost to that would be ridiculous at that point. But still, it's something that would add to the gameplay and, the strategic aspect of that, while still, creating a form of balance, in a sense. Because we don't have the mines anymore that we used to be for invasion, so we can't just infinitely have them, get just brimstone or just iron. So the resources are limited, making them incredibly valuable, depending. So it would definitely be nice to see some balance there. Now, regardless, that's about all I can think of for now. I'm sure there's a few other things I could potentially come up with. Probably the same thing for the catapult. Would be nice if there was other uses for the catapult. Obviously, launching a Bricktron across to another area to build there would be kind of nice. Or maybe building materials, using it to launch building materials or something would be interesting. But that's just my kind of, hey, wouldn't that be cool? One good thing we could do with the catapults in that regard is, instead of filling them with an explosive barrel, why not fill them with just rocks? Why not fill them with just plain rocks, aim them to an area, and then use it to fire off a kind of a hail of stones? That would be a really, really nice use of the catapult. It would make it so I would actually want to build like 3 or 4 catapults, because then I'd have a really nice AoE attack for them. But again, it would also be nice if I could set an area in that case for the catapult and be like, okay, defend this area, so that when they attacked, they would fire automatically as they approached the area in question. Perhaps it would give me the option to tweak it so that I could say, only fire if there's 5 units in the area, or something, so it's not wasting it on a single guy at the initial wave that happened to rush up to the wall or the section, whatever section I'm aiming at. So that's definitely another thing they could do with that. So, there's many things they could do, many improvements they could make that would make the game even more fun, enjoyable, and so on and so forth. All it's up to now is time as to whether or not they'll be able to do it. If they do get, a good portion of that kind of stuff in, then again, perhaps I'll change my rating back, perhaps I'll do more content on it, and yeah, we'll just have to see where things go in the future. Regardless, though, again, have a great one, everyone. Thank you for watching, and perhaps I will see you another time. Dragon out.